Welcome to the Republican Roundtable. I'm Jacqueline America, your host. It's election time. We have Adam Schwarze, who's running for U.S. Senate with us today. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah.
In my hometown, Bloomington.
Oh, right. All right.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Adam. What made you decide to run?
Yeah, my background, I'm adopted, so I'm only on this planet because my mom chose life for me. Right on my 18th birthday is kind of when 9/11 happened, so 3 weeks after that, from east side of Bloomington, right here's where I grew up. But I do have my biological families also from Minnesota. So I actually have two legal families to vote for me in this election. So.
All right, there you go.
But 3 weeks after 9/11, which I saw real time for my senior year English class, I raised my right hand, ended up serving 10 years in the Marine Corps Infantry, went right over after I graduated high school. Did all 5 phases of Operation Iraqi Freedom, did a couple tours, serving at embassies around the world, so I did some time serving in the Department of State. Did really well at the combat and at the foreign service time. Was accepted to a meritorious commission to become an officer. Got my undergrad here at the University of Minnesota, and then I commissioned back out into the Navy. Achieved my lifelong dream, became a Navy SEAL.
Wow.
So from 2012 then to 2023, my last 11 years was in the SEAL teams. My last 7 years was doing really important strategic missions for Naval Special Warfare Undersea. Everything for the last 7 years I did was a mission commander against Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, near peer operations. So that's kind of my context of how I look at this fight for the U.S. Senate. This is a no-fail mission to flip this Senate seat. It's a great opportunity. At the end of my career, I did kind of turn into a little bit of a nerd as well. I got a couple advanced degrees. Got a master's at Harvard in international relations. Got a couple master's certificates at Harvard in nuclear deterrence, international security. Got my MBA most recently from Johns Hopkins, and then finished up a master's in public policy from Johns Hopkins. So kind of a unique background of 9 deployments to 75 plus countries. I think I've worked with about every government agency in the federal government: peacekeeping, humanitarian, direct action, combat, intelligence, peacekeeping operations, foreign relations stuff for the United States of America, and then having an academic background, which I got after my real world experience. So that's my background.
Wow, and then some.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what made you decide to run? So we're coming up on primary time, and Michelle Tafoya is also running. Is that had an impact on your campaign, or?
Yeah, why am I running? In a word, just leadership.
Yeah.
I think that the Washington, D.C. establishment class on both sides of the aisle is no longer serving the American people. It really opened my eyes to politics and politicians is COVID. Most people that I know who serve in the military, we don't like politicians, we don't like politics, we just like to serve. But I saw my friends getting kicked out of the military during COVID. I saw the draconian policies we had here in Minnesota under Walz and Peggy Flanagan's leadership or failed leadership. I've had some other personal experiences out in Hawaii, but just leadership matters. And it doesn't matter how important the strategic Navy SEAL mission I was doing behind the scenes for our country. If we were gonna let our country go to waste, I mean, the Bloomington that is out here now is not the same Bloomington I grew up in. Minnesota is almost unrecognizable. And now we know that, right, to the $9 to $19 billion of fraud. We know that we're about to give away our state unless we have a course correction. And it's the same thing for the federal government. You look at all the billions of dollars of fraud in Minnesota, what's trillions of dollars of fraud at the federal level. And then you mentioned my primary opponent, Michelle Tafoya. I mean, there could never be a more clear contrast in candidates ever in the history of probably the Republican Party than this Senate race. Where just from like a biographical standpoint, I'm a homegrown Minnesotan. I grew up here. She's from Manhattan Beach, California, Berkeley. I love playing hockey. She's, I was a front lines fighter for Marine, Navy SEAL. She's a sidelines reporter for qualifications. I have all that combat time. I have all that time working with the federal government, doing these really important strategic policies. What policies do you really have if you're a sideline sports reporter that gets you ready to run for the United States Senate? This is a really big race. We need people that have qualified to run. But I think the biggest contrast between me and Ms. Tafoya are just purely on policies. We're about to have a Republican primary in a couple weeks. She will not debate, which is historic. That's never happened in our party where a candidate just refused to debate. Well, here's why. Because she'd have to defend her position. One, she's on record as a never Trumper, called him mentally unfit to serve. President Trump is the only person I voted for president. I've also had the ability to fight for President Trump. I fought ISIS for President Trump. She's pro-abortion. She's been pro-abortion for 20 years. I'm arduously a pro-life candidate because I'm adopted. I'm only on this planet because of my mom choosing life for me. And I'm going to be a champion for life in the U.S. Senate through expanding adoption, supporting expectant mothers. And these are things that are nonpartisan, but when you're pro-choice, I think that should be a non-starter to be even a Republican. She's pro-amnesty for the illegals. She's on the record as supporting the Dignidad Act, which gives a pathway to illegals to have citizenship. And I submit that as somebody who's seen the rest of the world, loves humanity, can embrace humanity, but the first thing you do is come across our borders illegally, you don't have a right to be here. You have to come and do it the right way, just because I know I've seen hundreds of thousands of people around the world that want to be American citizens. They have to do it the right way.
Right.
And she's for red flag gun laws. Again, on the record recently saying that she supports red flag gun laws. I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm a smaller government, but I'm also for constitutional rights. And that's why I've been endorsed by MCCL, Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life. It's the #1 pro-advocacy group. They've endorsed me. The NRA, they've endorsed me. Obviously, they like that they have a Marine and Navy SEAL on the ballot that's going to support Second Amendment gun rights. And also, I'm a team player. I mean, I work really hard. We've seen each other around the state, but everybody knows that the Schwarze campaign works hard, and we lead with values. We don't sacrifice values. Where she's been sponsored by the DC establishment. She's by the same U.S. Senate that refuses to pass the Save America Act right now because they're not fighting for American citizens. When I talk about failed leadership, that's the same entity that's floated her all this DC money, the dark money, where my campaign, we've raised $1.5 million of you. American citizens, Minnesotans, 87 of 87 counties, Americans from all across the country, they want a champion for their values and a champion that does the hard work without taking shortcuts. So I don't think there has ever been a greater contrast in two candidates in this race.
Yeah, someone who's going to defend the citizens, where a personality comes on with just talking points.
That's right. You get somebody who's done their whole life getting spoken to them through their earpiece. I still don't have an earpiece on today. Or somebody who's literally been a fighter in the trenches for our values, fought for democracy.
Sure.
I'm going to be a champion for the American people and fight like heck.
Oh, you already are. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what other challenges face Minnesota? You had mentioned the
election integrity.
Election integrity.
I mean, so everybody knows about the $9 to $19 billion of fraud. That your stolen tax dollars and fraud doesn't happen in a vacuum, and that's why it's so important that we put a senator, a fighter in the U.S. Senate who's going to support the Save America Act. And when you look at my background versus anybody who's in Congress or the Senate, I've deployed more time downrange to fight for democracy. One of the most important pillars of democracy is elections. I'm sad to say that I sit before you today, and I don't have faith in our elections anymore.
Well,
that's the first time I've
you have
said
a personal story with that as well.
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. So we need to have free, fair, and transparent elections. And in Minnesota, we don't have transparency because Steve Simon won't release our voter logs.
3 lawsuits with that too.
That's right.
And to release the voter
rolls. That's right.
So we know who's registering to vote.
That's right. And these are all federal
and they
lawsuits.
still haven't been released.
That's right.
And now we're trying to get the federal government's coming in and looking at that.
Yeah.
But what happened to you?
Yeah, so you bring this up. This great way to segue that this is a federal issue, is we need fighters that are going to pass the Save America Act because President Trump can't do it alone. And my personal story is I came back and got my undergrad here at the University of Minnesota. Somebody registered for me illegally in 2009. And if you look at my background, it would make sense because I was living in Minneapolis going to the University of Minnesota. And then I commissioned in 2012, went directly to SEAL training. So from May when I graduated University of Minnesota, I started SEAL training in June. I finished SEAL training in December. There was no way I would have been able to be home November of 2012. And yet, publicly, if you go to the Secretary of State's website right now, it has that I registered in 2009, and more importantly and more egregiously, it says that it shows by the Minnesota records that I voted in the 2012 presidential election as a deployed military member who was not.
You weren't even in the state.
I was 2,000 miles away on a mountain. And I have proof, I have records that show that I was detached on military orders, and I have Secretary of State records saying that I voted in that election.
And you didn't do a mail-in ballot or anything like that?
It says I voted in person.
Oh.
It says I voted in person. And I did not do mail-in ballot because I was too busy with becoming a Navy SEAL. And I actually remember that because after the election occurred, the BUDS instructors, the SEAL instructors, beat the whole class down because SEALs like conservatives because they just do a better job at leading the military. Just like right now under President Trump, we're more focused on lethality, war fighting things. Where under President Obama, we were more focused on DEI and CRT and all these non-effective war fighting things. So the BUDS instructors took it out on all the SEAL candidates for that election. So I remember getting like a 3-hour beatdown because they were mad that we didn't find a way to vote. But so the so what though is we don't know if I'm a one-of-one case study where there was like an error in the system, or if it's part of a larger issue where they're using veterans' votes who are deployed to vote in elections. And that should be a national story, right? Like if Minnesota, because again, where there's no transparency here, is this part of a bigger problem? When Nick Shirley broke the fraud story, it was the Leering Center, right? Is now going to be the Schwarze vote that was cast in 2012. What breaks the ice on this larger story? We just don't know, because the Secretary of State won't give us any further records.
Right, it's maddening.
Yeah, and it's scary considering that happened in 2012. How many election cycles and how many votes were cast illegally? And what's the point of elections? Is that we get represented by leaders that we choose. Well, I did not vote, so essentially we could be getting people that are being elected that do not represent what the people chose.
Right.
That's very scary and just counter to a democracy.
Well, even in the 2025 election for city council and things like that, Voter Alliance found people that were listed on the voter rolls and got a couple hundred people just in CD5 or the Minneapolis area thrown off the voter rolls. And that, of course, voting had already started.
Yeah.
It's just
that's
crazy.
I mean, you bring up a great point, is elections and election integrity, they're not partisan. 87% of Americans want the Save America Act passed. We just don't have fighters who are doing the work to pass it, and we're turning it into a partisan issue. But it's not a partisan issue. 87%, man, woman, black, white, rich, poor. 87% of Americans say, hey, let's have some common sense in our elections in person with an ID.
Right.
Like being an American citizen, have an ID. Like these are common sense things. But
Yeah.
we just need fighters in the U.S. Senate that make it come true.
Right. Yeah. So, so when you're elected, what 5 things would you be working on besides voter fraud?
The Save America Act is the priority.
Okay.
That's the American people's priority. That's the number one thing that I will work to accomplish. And frankly, I'm willing to use what's called the talking filibuster, where we take the Save America Act to the floor right now and put everybody on the record with their positions. The Democrats' morally bankrupt positions, intellectually bankrupt positions on why you don't need to be an American citizen, why getting an ID is somehow racist, and put the Republicans on record who are failing to do the right thing. And if that log jams everything else in the U.S. Senate, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Because you can't have a country unless you have free and fair elections. It's the number one priority.
Right.
Other than that, I'm a constitutional conservative, so I just want a lower federal government. I want less executive power. I want less federal power. And I want more power to the American people and their local cities, townships, their local school districts, their local governments. And it's not that I'm an anarchist, I'm anti-government. I just know that the further the tax dollar gets away from your community, the less effective it is. Yeah. So let's put money into your local schools, your local school boards, your local cities. When it comes to the federal government, I mean, again, in Minnesota, we can conceptualize this because we know that we were robbed of $9 to $19 billion. And when it's federal fraud, it's orders of magnitude. Well, what about if we just given less money to the federal government and less money to the state of Minnesota, and we're a lot more effective in your local communities? Right. And you have a lot more power already because you elect your local school boards, you elect your sheriffs, you elect your mayors. So all of that money, if it's never stolen from you, it's just, I say the best tax dollars, simply the one that never leaves your bank account.
Right. Well, who can take better care and better decisions of your own family? You or the government.
Amen.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a constitutional conservative.
Yeah. And then speaking about, finances, things, $30 trillion in debt. What would you plan to do with spending? Yeah.
So my number one thing that I'm going to advocate for, my number one policy, is the Save America Act. The number one priority, it's not the sexy Navy SEAL mission. It's not an issue that's in the top 5 thing that people like to talk about, but it is the number one way that we die as a country. And it's our debt. You just said it. And so how do I stop that from happening? I just stop deficit spending. Stop the bleeding from continuing to happen. And again, for your viewership, this is a bipartisan problem. Republicans and Democrats, they're both weak leaders. When I say, again, why am I running leadership? They refuse to do the hard work. They're supposed to manage your purse, your tax dollars, and they keep putting pork, putting more debt on everything, just kicking the can down the road. And so all these federal programs, all these federal government things are ballooning up, just like the Minnesota government is here. And that's wasteful of your tax dollars, but also, I like to tell this story as how did Rome fall? Rome was not conquered by a larger invading army or a deeper blue water navy that came in. No, it had civic discourse, kind of like we're having right now, is in the disarray within its own nation, kind of like what we're seeing right now in our own streets. And then it had political corruption, again, like we're seeing right now. with all this corruption we have in Minnesota and at the national level, and then ultimately it overspent and it crumbled. And I see a lot of glide slope similarities to how Rome fell and how America's on that same path right now, and that scares me. So deficit spending. What's my legacy going to be? My legacy in the U.S. Senate is going to be nuclear energy. So because I've done a lot of military things, I'll probably be on the Senate Armed Forces Committee. I'll probably be on the Senate Intelligence Committee because of some of my operational experience. But because I have that master's in nuclear power from Harvard, I know a lot about nuclear weapons, but I also know about nuclear power. And when you look at I love to talk about nuclear power from the leftist points, by the way.
Sure.
Because it's not if we're going to do it or not going to do it, it's who's going to do it. It's going to be us, or it's going to be China, or Iran, or Russia, or North Korea, or one of our near peer allies. But somebody's going to lean into nuclear. It's coming. I don't want to be reactive. I want to be proactive and have America be on the cutting edge of nuclear power.
Sure.
And again, people talk about data centers, whether you're for them or against them. Some cities are against them, and that's fine. I'm for the people. If you don't want a data center, I won't force it down your throat. Some people are for data centers. But the best way to get a data center online is actually couple it with what's called an SMR, a small modular nuclear reactor, because a lot of people don't like data centers because of the power consumption and how it makes the community's power go up.
Sure.
If you connected an SMR to that, you'd shed power back to the community and make people's power cheaper, more affordable.
Okay.
And besides data centers, all electric vehicles, all these cryptocurrency, AI. AI is like the largest consumption of power right now. I think 3 Mile Island has already been bought up by Google and is getting online again.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
Wow.
so we need nuclear power for all the things that are happening in 2026 and beyond. And I want to make Minnesota the worldwide nuclear headquarter of the world. And we're within a few years of making it completely safe, like impervious to earthquakes, destruction, natural disasters. It's already the safest form. I want to make it impervious to natural disasters, but it's also the only thing that gives us power at the consumption needed. When you look at all these things that the federal government spent your tax dollars on with hydro and solar and electric, those are all terrible investments of your dollars. If you let the free market decide those, American corporations and private citizens would never have gone in that direction to begin with.
Sure.
And I'm for free market. So if people want to put a wind tower on their farm or do solar, I'm okay with that. But I just don't want your federal tax dollars being wasted in that. But I do want to lean into nuclear power because we're about 5 to 15 years out from fusion power. But the way we get there is leading to nuclear power right now, and that's the future. And that's going to be my policy legacy in the U.S. Senate. And by the way, I've never heard one policy from my primary opponents that they're going to do in office. Like you have to be for something, right? Like we're more than just about getting boys out of girls sports. That's been decided at the federal government. It's been decided at the Supreme Court. Like we need to get some people in office that actually can provide some policies and have a background to do something to serve the American people. And I think that's what separates me and the other candidates on as well.
So with the data centers and things like that, you'd add a power plant, a nuclear, small nuclear power plant. Would that still consume? Well, I know that a lot of things, there's noise and there's also heat, and it raises the heat of the area and things. Would that help with that, or water consumption?
Water consumption, we have a ton of fresh water in Minnesota. And again, I'm not forcing data centers down people's throats. I'm for we the people. So I know like some communities down in southern Minnesota, they are arduously against data centers. And I also know some communities up in Minnesota, they're really upset because the walls bureaucracies have made so much red tape that they can't get data centers, and they want data centers.
Sure.
So for communities that, I'm running for U.S. Senate, right? So I'm not going to be getting the weeds of who wants, doesn't want, but just philosophically, I'm for we the people. And it's, again, that's why I want local government. So if local government doesn't want a data center, don't force it down them. If they want a data center, like I know there's some communities up in Minnesota, in northern Minnesota that want them, that's great. Let's put an SMR, a small modular reactor, so not only are they getting a lot of jobs, a lot of business growth by building that and operating that, but you're also going to give power back to the community that lowers everybody's power bill.
And it sounds more efficient.
It's way more. The nuclear power is more efficient, but Minnesota has some of the highest energy costs in the country. That would be a great way to lower everybody's energy bills.
Well, you mentioned some committees that you would be interested in working on. So, what other committees would you?
Yeah, the three that I would be the best fit for is I think I have more time downrange deployed than anybody serving right now in Congress, the U.S. Senate. So I think I'd be a very good fit.
You have a great worldly view.
Yeah, great worldly view. Yeah, 77 countries, all 7 continents. I think it'd be a great fit for the Armed Forces Committee. And that's a multi-trillion-dollar budget. So we want somebody that has like the background to serve in that, make sure that we're not wasting your tax dollars in a large and bloated military, but one that's smart, efficient and is vectored on the right threats.
We have military companies here in Minnesota
We
too.
do,
So
we do. But when it comes to spending, I'm not for a big bloated military, and I'm also a no
Military
wars guy.
contractors.
But I want to vector our military into the right things that are going to lead the future in the next evolution of warfare. I've also been a mission commander doing a lot of intelligence missions, so I'll probably be a good fit for the Senate Intelligence Committee, having been downrange, working with a myriad of different intelligence agencies.
a little
Good.
different from Omar.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm pro-America, so I'm already different than Omar. I love our country. That's
She
why
was
I'm running.
kicked off that committee.
Yes. But the most exciting thing that I want to do for America right now is truly be proactive in energy and get nuclear online and make sure that we're a worldwide leader. And I get really excited to talk about energy also from truly the leftist talking points, is we have the opportunity to do something here in Minnesota where if we chose not to do it, you're either for nuclear or you're for destroying the rainforest. Because you're either getting power from those minerals down there in the rainforest,
Right.
or we get nuclear. You're either for nuclear power or you're complicit with China exporting 1 coal power plant per month to Africa.
Yeah.
So you talk about like the environmental damage that coal power plants do. Well, look at what China's doing with Africa right now. We could also export one of those SMRs all over the continent of Africa. So I get really excited talking about nuclear and being on the Energy Committee. Also be on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Foreign Relations Committee. I'd be a good fit there. So there's a multitude of committees with my actual qualifications and background that'd be a good fit for.
Yeah.
And again, I would argue when you look at some of my primary opponents like Tafoya, what committee is she going to serve on?
Right.
I've heard her say like, hey, we buy too much stuff from China, put me on the China committee. Well, unfortunately, there isn't a China committee in the U.S. Senate.
Right.
So like, it's important to know your job.
Maybe she could do stuff with broadcasting. Or
Yeah,
no,
I don't think there's a broadcasting committee, but
it's just a real lightweight campaign, unfortunately, and it's sad that she's taking this to the primary. Like you
well,
said,
it's bought and paid for by D.C., right? It's not her money. It's $3 million from D.C. that was shoveled down to try to force an establishment candidate down into Minnesota. I think it's the saddest part about this whole thing is we talk about election integrity, and this may be a provocative statement, but I think that the Republican establishment right now is the biggest aggressor in our free and fair elections because they've set this up where we're not debating. We haven't had 0 debates. That's never happened before in a Senate
Sure.
primary,
Well,
where they force a candidate down that doesn't feel like they
when
have to debate.
Democrats don't debate either.
Correct.
So they're
Well,
kind
no,
of
that's not
learning
true.
from that, right?
Angie Craig and Peggy Flanagan had a debate on
Did
the
they?
Almanac. Yeah, they had a debate on the Almanac.
Okay, so that's recent then.
Michelle Tafoya pulled out of the Almanac. We were supposed to debate before the
okay.
endorsement. We had a couple
for-
debates. Michelle pulled out of all those endorsements. We were supposed to have a debate tomorrow on WCCO. Michelle pulled out of that. So she's pulled out of
Wow.
everything. And that just shows you like how corrupted this system is.
That
to give
is
all
not
the
okay.
money,
Yeah.
push her on all the national news outlets, but she won't do anything local. She won't debate. So Republicans in the U.S. Senate are just as bad as election meddling right now as the Democrats when you're forcing this establishment candidate that's not from Minnesota, doesn't represent our values, doesn't support life, doesn't support Second Amendment, doesn't supports amnesty for illegals, and doesn't support the Republican endorsement. I love that we're a grassroots state. We're one of 2 states where the will of the people is actually abided by. Like, you can't just have a name ID candidate with a lot of money come down here and thrust themselves into a race because of you. You know, the grassroots. And that's why America is going sideways. It's because all these candidates for these large scale races, they're just high name ID candidates, but they don't have values. They don't have policies. And then when they get into the U.S. Senate, that's why we have $30 trillion. It's
Right.
because they're already cushy. They're already making money. They don't care about actual policies. As long as they get power, they get fame, they're happy. And we're getting further and further away from the Constitution and what our framers designed for America. And I'm terrified.
Yeah. Oh, it's maddening. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So okay. We have a few more minutes left. What are your stance on immigration? What do you think we should be doing with that?
Well, I think the Democrats and the Republicans are completely opposite on this, where I want to have a secure border and I want to do a holistic immigration reform after we figure out how many people are in here illegally. But it starts with border security, it starts with immigration reform, but they just want to do the opposite. They want to, under Biden, this was by design, they opened up the borders. They allowed 20 million people, by the way, thousands from the terrorist watch list.
Sure.
And then they want to have like immigration reform and then give a pathway to citizenship to these 20 million people
Right.
that they are
Count them in the census, right?
count them in the census,
Yep.
which is another thing I hope we stop on 2030, is when we redo the censuses, it only counts American citizens. And that's going to be another priority of mine in the U.S. Senate, is when we do a census, we have to have a constitutional amendment so it counts only American citizens. And that would pull out 15 to 25 congressional representatives, all
Wow.
Democrat.
Right.
That would be the largest way to impact your representatives. And again, congressional representatives are supposed to represent American citizens, not illegal immigrants.
Right.
So it's really frustrating how that's still a thing. It hasn't been adjudicated yet, but it's something that we can solve in Congress. We have a constitutional amendment to fix that loophole.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm very much a strong border. It's not because I'm a lack of human. I've seen hundreds of thousands of people all around the world who don't live in America. And that's why I'm so proud of our country, but we
Right.
can't give it away just because I see people all over the world, which is really the saddest part is I also see our young youth, and they are so woefully ignorant to how beautiful America is. Not all of them, because there's kind of a counterculture returning back to our values, our family values, our Christian values, but there's a large part of just our youth who they don't know how lucky they are to be
Right.
in America at this point in time, and we're the only country in the world that always gets better. And you could say that, yes, we have not a perfect past, but no country does. But we're a country that's always moving in the right direction and giving
Exactly.
the next generation more opportunity than the previous one had.
Right.
And I could tell you hundreds of stories from people that came in here first generation with nothing, lint in their pockets. And this is recently,
Right.
lint in their pockets, and they built businesses, established wealth.
Right. The American dream,
The
right?
American
Yeah.
dream.
Yep.
We are the only country in the entire world that's not guaranteed, but through opportunity has unlimited economic mobility.
Awesome.
No other country in the world has it like America.
Yeah, that's true. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, how can people find out about your campaign?
Schwarze for Senate, SCHWARZE,
Okay.
FORSENATE.com.
Okay, we'll run that on the bottom too. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming here. It's really great to have you. Keep up the good work on the campaign.
Thanks.
And
Good to be back in my hometown of Bloomington.
Yeah, yeah. What? We have like a minute left. What would you want people to remember about your campaign?
The number one thing I want people to remember about the Schwarze for Senate campaign is we built a grassroots network. We do the hard work. We don't sacrifice on values, and we don't have to. There's
Right.
220,000 Republicans, conservatives who didn't vote in the last statewide election. We don't have to compromise on our values. We build a high-performing team by doing the work. And I'd ask for every one of your viewers to look at my background, look at the other candidates' background, and figure out which team they want to be a part of. Because
Right.
there's going to be one team that's on the right side of American histories and American values.
Right, and we need people to get out to vote.
Yes,
I mean,
we do.
that's number one. You can't be complacent anymore.
And it starts with
so,
this primary, August 11th.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, God bless you.
Well,
Thanks for having me here
well,
today.
God bless you, and thank you so much for being here. We got to get you elected.
Thank you.
Appreciate you're a great
Thank you.
American, so thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Wonderful.
Thank you for joining us for the Republican Roundtable. We'll see you next time.